go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming out. Today, what we want to deal with on today is we want to break and decode the "I have a dream" speech, because we understand that Dr. Martin Luther King was not just another man on the scene speaking, but he was a prophet. We believe that. Most of us do. We also believe that our ancestors spoke through him. Yes, sir. About a time that was coming in the future, and our ancestors used the voice of Martin Luther King to demonstrate those times. We believe that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke in a language very similar to the way the Africans wrote in old times, called hieroglyphics. We believe that he spoke that language because he spoke similar to how one that was amongst people 2,000 years ago called Jesus, how he spoke in parables. So when you study the parables of Martin Luther King, then you get to see what was he really saying, and what is the "I have a dream" speech truly all about. And then, is it written of in the scriptures? And if it's in the scripture, where is it? And then, why aren't people talking about it? So, for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and move forward. I want to play the speech real quick, and then once it's played, we'll break the speech through the writings of the speech. Thank you very much. Bear with me.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the people's injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of imposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Okay, so basically what you just heard is the Martin Luther King speech. And what people focus on primarily is the I Have a Dream, and the black boys and white boys would be able to sit down at the table of brotherhood. Little black boys would be able to hold hands with white girls and so forth and so on. But there's a lot more to the speech than that. And what we want to do today is that we want to give it our African understanding and interpretation based on the spirit of our ancestors. And what I want you to understand in the onset is that our ancestors communicate with us all the time. This is not hocus pocus, this is reality. And if you don't believe that our ancestors communicate with us, if you look at me, you're looking at my ancestors. Physically, I look like my ancestors. The makeup of my DNA calls me to reason logically based on the reasoning and understanding of my ancestors. So we don't want to diffuse or dilute or dismiss it. We want to bring the understanding forward in a greater way. Now, why are we looking at I Have a Dream? It's very significant because this was one of the most compelling speeches in America that the world had ever heard. One of the most compelling speeches. But what the world does not do is give it the type of recognition and credence that it so deserves. The world has dismissed and minimized Martin Luther King and not put him in his proper place. Here it is that you have a man come forward, born in 1929 in Georgia. Eventually goes off to Europe. His name before Martin Luther King was Michael King. When his father went to Europe and saw the thesis or the writing of Martin Luther King, Martin Luther, posted on the Lutheran Church, he changed his name from Michael to Martin in admiration of him challenging the Catholic Church. So now this man comes back to the United States of America and he starts challenging the local politics in Georgia. He starts challenging the local politics in Alabama and the South and so forth and so on. What I'm trying to get you to see, when you see leaders like that come forward, know that they are inspired by our ancestors. Otherwise, they can't come forward and do such great things. Now, let me get to the meat of this real quick. So, what we're talking about is the I Have a Dream speech, and you hear me in the subtitle where it says, what was a dream and where is the mountaintop? What was a dream and where is the mountaintop? Let's go right to it. Let's define dreams real quick so that we'll be on the same page, and I'll talk a little bit about these things. Dream, as written of by Webster and most Western definitions, are simply dreams are successions of images and ideas, emotions and sensations that occur involuntarily in the mind during certain stages of sleep. Stop. The first thing that I want you to take note to is that Webster says here, Dr. Dodo, that these dreams are involuntary. That is a very westernized approach towards dreams. Our dreams can be voluntary. In other words, you can invoke dreams. In other words, you can bring dreams and vision into your conscious. Our ancestors used dreams historically as a system and a tool of communication. I'm going to show you biblically. So if you continue, the first thing I want you to see here is that Webster says it's involuntary, Dr. Dodo. But dreams can also be voluntary stages. In other words, you can invoke answers and responses to problems through the dream system. But how many of you know that we have forgotten those techniques and methodologies mostly? Now, it says here, the content and purpose of dreams are not definitely understood, though they have been a topic of scientific speculation as well as a subject of philosophical and religious interest throughout recorded history. The scientific study of dreams is called enterology. Scientists believe that in addition to humans, certain birds and majority of mammals also dream. So what they're telling us is that they know very little about dreams. And there's a reason that the scientists are writing from this perspective, because they dream very little themselves. And they don't have the ability to go into their dream states like we do. We're going to talk about that briefly, but I want you to understand and get a depiction here of what dreams are. Another definition here says, realm of spiritual existence that occurs when the body is physically at rest. That means that when your body is at rest, all of your organs are at rest. You have a greater ability to bring forth dreams. Information and spirit form based on the experiences that have been or has been happening or happened throughout life. In other words, one of the definitions of dreams is when information comes to you based on your own personal experiences and also based on experiences that are etched in your DNA. The silent communications with other spirits or ancestors. The silent communication with other spirits or ancestors. Excuse me, brother. Were you here a couple years ago at the Independence Day function?
No.
Okay, I thought I met you before. I've never met you.
No, yeah.
Okay, no problem. I got you. Okay, I'll deal with it in a second. Okay. The movement of DNA releasing information that has been recorded throughout the family line. The movement of DNA releasing information that has been recorded throughout the family line. What do I mean? Well, some of you all of a sudden will pop up and become great builders, because great building is in your DNA. Come on. So some of you will wake up and you'll be great musicians because it's in your DNA. Lena, Soleil, y'all come from a musical family. So it's no, it's no surprise that you can sing or play instruments because you come from a musical family. Well, this is that expression that's in your DNA that's coming alive. Martin Luther King was no different. But what I'm trying to get you to see is that we can't look at dreams from a westernized perspective, because if we do, we'll miss the power in the dream. And this is another reason why one of the first things they taught us after they kidnapped us and brought us over here as slaves is don't pay any attention to your dreams. Don't pay any attention to the star system. Pay absolutely no attention to that. As a matter of fact, they tried to minimize it by calling it witchcraft. Yeah. Now, it says vision of the past and future. A system of communication whereby which things are revealed. In your dream states, revelation comes. In your dream states, you'll get understanding about things that perhaps you wouldn't get in your normal state. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because I want you to recognize the significance and importance of your dreams. So Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. It's not to be minimized, because this is a direct communication with our ancestors. How do I know this? Because we find the writing of our ancestors in the Bible. And we find Martin Luther King's I have a dream in the Bible. Watch. Book of Numbers, chapter 12, verse 6. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known to him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. That means the Spirit of God and his communication system comes to you in a vision and in a dream. Most often. But here's the big question. Where is the Spirit of God? Inside of you. So the very state of mind that's coming to you is starting within you. It's within your spiritual system. Why am I telling you? Watch. The book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 28. Chapter 2, verse 28. Check this out. The power of dreams. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and maketh known to the king of Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Now, without getting too far out of control, does anybody remember what heaven is? Can anybody tell me? Where is it, son?
In you.
In you. In you. Book of Luke, chapter 17. Know ye not that the kingdom of God is in you? Don't say here, look there. The kingdom of God is in you. You got to own this. Because once you understand that the kingdom of God is in you, then the answers to your problems you will look to come where? From within you. We should not be looking up there for answers to come. Ain't nothing up there but stars and dust and moon and so forth and so on. There's nothing up there that's going to immediately give you an answer to your problem. But watch this. When you have problems, do you know that you can solicit the response through your dream state? I'm going to show you with the scripture. So look at this. So, what shall be in the later days? The dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. Nebuchadnezzar was having a dream, but he could not interpret. So he went to the 3 Hebrew boys looking for interpretation, because he understood that the Hebrew boys had the power to interpret dreams. But here's the thing that I want you to catch. Where are the Hebrew boys today?
Right here.
Come on, somebody. They're right here. You have the power to interpret these dream states. This is why I'm telling you, when Martin Luther King said, I have a dream, it wasn't simply what you were hearing during that speech that day. He was speaking to two groups of people. And the masses were one of them, and then the Hebrew boys was another. Remember, in the scripture, Jesus says, when they're asking him, why does he speak in parables? He said it's for some to know and others not to know. Are y'all following me?
Right.
Okay, good. All right, so watch this. Let me back up for a second. Let's go right into the I have a dream real quick. Here are the writings. I want to decode this so that we get it. It says right here, I have a dream. Stop, Tony. Why is this so important? Because the dream is at hand right now. And it's unfolding right before our eyes. Watch this. I have a dream. He said, him, Martin Luther King, he has a dream. But remember, he's not speaking for himself. He's speaking for his ancestors. So if he says he has a dream, he said my ancestors have a dream. And I am bringing it forward. I am happy to join with you today. Listen at this. And what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. In other words, there is not a day, or hasn't been a day in the United States of America where you've had such a great demonstration for freedom than the day of 1963 when he started that speech. Look at it. 50 years ago, remember a score is 20. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand signed the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863. Only freed slaves in some states. Slavery, the slaves, wake up son, the slaves were freed after the 13th Amendment, which says that no man can be held as a slave involuntarily, unless he volunteers, in other words. This happened after the Civil War. The Civil War ended what year, Tony? The Civil War, 1865, the Civil War ended. 1865, the Civil War ended. So if the Civil War ended in 1865, then slaves supposedly gained their freedom in 1865 after the Civil War and the agreement or the signing of the Constitutional Amendment 13 that says that no man can be held as a slave involuntarily unless he commits a federal offense. That means that once you go to jail, your human rights are taken away from you at that point. Now, watch this. This momentous decree came as a great beacon. Now, I have here whose symbolic shadow. When you look at this, this is a symbolic shadow that's shown, the Lincoln Memorial, where he's giving a speech. I'm going to deal with that in a second. But I want you to see the Lincoln Memorial in the symbolic shadow because it's reflective of Africa. I'll show you in a second. This momentous decree came as a beacon, a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to the end of a long night of captivity. Light, daybreak. Light, daybreak. You got to catch it. What determines daybreak and light in the body? What determines daybreak? The pineal gland, right? The pineal gland determines day and night, right? The pineal gland determines that. Beacon of light is very significant because the scripture teaches us in 1 John 1 that God is what? Light. And that light lighteth every man that cometh into this world. Scripture. What is King telling us? Watch this. Then when we look at the reference to seared flames of withering fire or withering injustice, what are we talking about? The three Hebrew boys. The three Hebrew boys were put in a fiery furnace in the book of Nebuchadnezzar. In the book of Daniel, chapter 3. The three Hebrew boys were put in a fiery furnace. They weren't literally in a furnace filled with fire. And neither was this case that King is talking about. What King is talking about is the system of injustice being so hard on you. And it was the system of injustice that the three Hebrew boys were experiencing during the fiery furnace that made God become manifest out of them. Are you listening? In other words, what I'm trying to get you to see, that what King is telling us here, it is these tough circumstances that will allow the manifestation of the Spirit of God to come forward. Put it to you another way. Watch this. When does that time come? Here it is. Listen at the language. But 100 years later, we must face the tragic fact that the Negro is still not free. Count with me. 100 years one time. 100 years later, two times. The Negro is still sadly crippled in the mankles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, three times. Right? The Negro lives in a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast of material prosperity. 100 years later, four times. 100 years later, four times. The Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. Why is 400 years so significant? Anybody? Come on, somebody. Come on, sister. Let me have it.
It's our day to go forward.
Our day to go forward. Started in this country in 1619. Right? Martin is telling us in his symbolic language. Remember, symbolic symbol, symbolic language. That our time is up in what year?
2019.
Now you can play with it all you want to. You can say it's just talk all you want to. But follow the script real quick. Now, what Martin is telling us is that prior to 2019, Uncle Rudy, that you will suffer. The fire will be on your backside. But rest assured that after your 400 years, you will come out of this exile. Check out the language. Finds himself in exile in his own land. Does anybody want to take a stab at that one? Let me help you. When the body talks about earth, which earth, what is it talking about? Lee.
Say it again.
When the body mentions earth, it's talking about two things. Name one of them.
Your body.
Your body. Martin Luther King is saying, you're in exile in your own land. What does he say? In other words, you are the reason why you are in exile. You are the reason why you don't have freedom. You are the reason why you continue to be discriminated against. You know the reason why we don't have a black city council? Because we haven't decided to get one. But the minute that we decide to get a black city council, we'll get a black city council. The minute that Africa decides that it wants to be free, it will be free. But Africa has to decide that it wants to be free. And this is what we're seeing today as things continue to progress. Now watch, the thing that I want you to get here, please. The 400 years is very significant. He's talking about it in the I Have a Dream speech. And I'm going to show you more as we keep moving on it. Now, watch this. When you look at his speech, right, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society. The scriptures repeatedly tells us that the children of Israel, Judah, will be scattered in all four corners. All four corners of the earth, right? It continues to tell us that you will be scattered to all four corners of the earth. Come on, Uncle Tony, man. That you will be scattered in all four corners, of the earth. Right? Big boy. Give me five. Give me five. All right, let's do it. Big boy. Each one loved one. Each one loved one. Each one loved one. Okay, so now here's what happens. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, verse 2. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Watch this. Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society. Come here. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Who's Judah?
Us.
We are. We're Judah. How do we know? Because all of West Africa, dig it now, in the old maps, Dr. Dodo, prior to European colonization and invasion, all of West Africa, the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Cameroon, all of that region was called Judah land or Yahudah land. Y'all got to listen to this. They were called Yahudah land. And the reason why you don't see it on the current maps is because when the white explorers came in and colonized these regions, particularly in this area right here, this was called Yahudah land. Judah land. Later became Negro land.
Right.
Because the blacks left Ethiopia, went into Egypt, and fled back over in this area. They fled because the oppression was coming from the north, and they forced them to come back over into West Africa. So it was called Yahudah land or Judah land, or some maps call it Negro land. It was all of West Africa. This is what it was called. So when it says Judah from the four corners of the earth, Dr. Dono is Judah. Brother is Judah. You're from West Africa, right, brother? Yes. Judah. All of you, Judah. Because this is the region that we come from. Are you following me? Okay, good. Look at this. Judah from the four corners of the earth. Right? So Judah is scattered in the Caribbean, throughout Europe, throughout the Americas. Judah is scattered. But the scripture tells us that God is going to regather us. Now, watch, family. The obelisk. Does everybody recognize that symbol? And the Lincoln Memorial. All African symbols. That's not a good picture. Hold on. Here's another shot. Do you recognize that? The Lincoln Monument, right? Now, watch this. He's referencing Lincoln because Lincoln is instrumental in the Emancipation Proclamation, which is supposed to be the start of our freedom. Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about in his speech a new nation. The new nation that he was tying together was the Africans that came in the first diaspora, connecting them with the Africans became in the second diaspora back home. Let me show you. Does anybody know what this river represents? Let me give you a better shot. You know what that represents?
No.
The Nile River. So King is making reference to the Nile River to connect the Africans in America back to the Africans at home. Now remember, this river, this Nile River, is how long? 4,200 miles long, right? 4,200 miles long, the Nile River. Right? Now why is this so important? Why is this so important? Does anybody know? Remember? Because from Senegal to the United States of America, the East Coast, is how long? 4,200 miles long. No disputing that. No disputing that. 4,200 miles long. This is very important that we get and understand this, because this gives power to what Martin Luther King was trying to do. This is not for everybody. In the book of Revelations, the elders were weeping because they had the book, but they couldn't break the seals that were on the book. And then one of the elders came forward and said, "Weep no more. There's one from the tribe of Judah that can break the 7 seals." Watch this. This book that you call Bible, like it or not, this book that you call Quran, is for us. These are our books. We're the ones that gave spirituality and what you call religion to the entire world. These are our books. Keep moving. These are African symbols. This is all I'm trying to show you. Martin picked that spot because of the implications that are associated with Africa, and I'll show you more in a second. This is the Nile River as we see it back home. This is the same Nile River that's written of in the book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 10 through 14. Same book, chapter 2, verse 10 through 14. Right? Same book. Same book. It talks about Ethiopia. It's talking about our homeland. Right? One of our homelands. So, and the Nile River is written of there, splitting into 4 heads, talking about encompassing the whole land of Ethiopia. And you see it being split. This is Ethiopia, and this is the Nile River running north, because it's running down. And it's splitting right here. You see it splitting, encompassing the whole land of Ethiopia, as written of in Genesis chapter 2, verses 10 through 14. I'm almost finished. This is Ghana, West Africa, which has the obliques there. By the way, this is where the monument to, what's our great brother name? What's his name? The black leader that had the...
Nkrumah.
Not Nkrumah. What's his name? Du Bois. There's a monument there for him as well. Okay, so now let's keep rolling real quick. So it says, when Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. We don't need that. Now, let's go right here. It says in Isaiah 11 through 12, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and Pathros and Cush and Elam and Shinar and Hamath. These are all lands in North Africa and partly West Africa. And from the island of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel together, the dispersed of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. There's a gathering process that we're getting ready to go into that Martin King talked about, which I'm going to show you in a second. Any questions so far before I go into this? Anybody got any questions so far? Brother, you okay? Am I going too fast?
I gotta say.
Am I going too fast? Okay, good. What's your question?
No, you keep saying obelisk. I would say technical, because that's what they used to call it. Technical.
Say it loud. Let them hear you.
Technical. It's not. Obelisk is a Greek word.
Right.
The ancients called it technical.
Yeah, most people are probably more
they're
familiar with being called the obelisk.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you. Great point. We need to start speaking things more in our African culture as opposed to Greek or English culture, period. Yeah, so. Okay, so. Now, in a sense, we have come, this is back to a speech. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, stop for a second. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. Hold on a second, let's get back up. They just celebrated something called Independence Day. You see Independence Day, the European celebrating his independence from Great Britain. He celebrates that every year on the 4th of July. In his celebration, he reminds you through the explosions, to the fireworks, that if anybody ever tries to attack this nation again, that they were going to have to deal with war, okay? They were going to have to deal with war. He reminds us every single year that if you ever come against America, you got hell to pay. And that hell to pay is going to be through a system of war. Now watch this. The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir, except you. Why didn't the Constitution apply to you? Real talk.
We were 3/5.
You were 3/5 of a human. You were considered not citizens. You were not considered citizens.
We still not that.
Still not considered citizens. How do we know? How do we know? Because we can look around and see what's happening in the world. Then the Dred Scott decision came down, and Judge Taney said through the Dred Scott decision that black people have no rights that white people are to respect. And the reason why is because you are not citizens. This was his ruling. His ruling. Because you are not citizens. Now, what is Martin telling us? Watch this. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir, but he knew that that didn't really apply to us. But remember now, he's speaking two languages. The note was a promise that all men should be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, this did not apply to you because you were not considered a man. You were considered 3/5 of a man. And the other 2/5 was what? No, sir. Yeah, you're right, but technically, God. The other 2/5 was God. That's the most important part that they left out from you. Let's show you. Keep walking with us for a second. 1 Peter 2:9. Watch this. But ye are a chosen people, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praise of him who have called you out of darkness into the marvelous light, which in the time past were not a people at all. In the time past, you were not considered a people at all. In their minds, you were 3/5. You call them sister? That's okay. I mean, we got it. We got it. You going to your mom, sir? In the time past, you were 3/5 of a human. So which in time past, you were not considered a people at all. They didn't consider you a people based on their standards. But our standards were that you called us 3/5 of a man because you know the other 2/5 was God. That's what you knew. So you were not considered a people at all. You can't find any other people in the world who that fits. You were not considered a people at all. You were being relegated to animals and sheep, animals and cattle. You were considered subhuman. Nobody fits this scripture like you, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of God, which have not been obtained by mercy, but not have obtained mercy. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, but in the past you were not considered a people at all. Nobody else will fit that better than a black man and woman. You won't find anybody else that fit that. Keep rolling.
How about the Jews?
No, sir. The Jew can't, the Jew, you saying the white Jew? No, he can't get that. Here, pass this to Lee. Give me Revelations, brother, 12 and 9. No, you got it, brother. Read Revelations 12 and 9. So look, here's 2 and 9, Revelations 2 and 9. The Jew can't claim this. Why? Because when they went into Germany, they were a people. They were so much a people that they controlled, rise and fall to the right. They were so much a people that they controlled the banking system in Germany. They controlled the banking system in Germany. They control all the money in Germany. They control the education. They controlled it to the extent that Hitler got pissed off. So much so that he put together a plan to destroy the so-called Jew. And the reason why is because during that time, the Germans of that area didn't control anything, Dr. Dodo. Nothing. So Hitler said, I got something for you. I'm going to deal with that. So Hitler went to war against the Jews. Right, wrong, or indifferent. But let me show you why this doesn't apply to them. Loud, brother.
All right, Revelations 2, chapter 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Let's stop for a second. Go back to the beginning. 12, 2 and 9, one more time. Start over.
Okay, I'm going to start over. Revelations chapter 2, verse 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty.
Stop for a second. What it's saying is that I know the work of the Jews because they are really in poverty. The modern day Jew, the Ashkenazi Jew, he's only 2% of the world's population. He controls 70% of the world's wealth. Wow. The Bible is telling us that the Jews are poor, right? But yet they are rich. We're poor materially, but spiritually we're rich. Are you getting me? Yeah. So we know exactly who the Bible's talking about. Go ahead, brother.
But thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue
of Satan. Stop for a second. What are the Ashkenazi Jews? Where do they go to worship? Synagogue. Right? So the Bible is telling us these people who say they're Jews, they're not. They're from the synagogue of Satan. This is where they come from. So the Bible is letting us know, Dr. Dodo, that you ain't talking about those people. See, we can disqualify them with the Bible every single time. We can disqualify them. And this is their book. Okay, now, next. So we're dealing with a chosen people, right? There's no doubt, who were once not considered a people at all, right? You go into many parts of Africa right now, sister. Many of the people in Africa near where you may come from. These people are not really considered people by the people that are in control. So in other words, the Europeans that colonized that region still treat them like they're less than human. Is that right or wrong? Very much the case. We can go into different parts of America. Did you see what happened in Jackson, Mississippi? Where they beheaded a black man, cut his head off. Cut his head off 2 Saturdays ago. And put his head on the doorstep of one of his friends. And then burn his body. You know why they can do that? Because they don't consider you human. That's why they can do that. They consider you like animal. That's why they can do that. And you don't hear about this today. Right? So now, let's keep rolling. The 400 years is almost up. This is what Martin Luther King was talking about. We're going to get into it. In his dream, this is where his dream comes from. In the book of Genesis, chapter 15. Starting at the 13th verse. Let's get into it. Keep rolling. Now it says, back to the speech. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on its promissory note. It's obvious today that we are not considered as humans in the United States of America. So the promissory note don't mean a damn thing because we don't enjoy the rights of citizens. Neither do the West Africans enjoy the rights of their own land. They don't control the oil. They don't control the gold. They don't control the diamonds. They don't control any of the money in that region. None of the natural resources. You know why? Because they consider them less than human. They have dehumanized us. In West Africa, as well as the United States of America. 54 countries in Africa. 54. Even the African leaders that are in position of power, the European controls them. The European put them there. And this is why that nation, that continent continues to be the way that it is. The second largest continent in the world. The second largest. Out of control. Over 1 million Chinese people in Africa now. Controlling the businesses in Africa. Controlling much of the education now in Africa. Taking control of much of the resources in Africa. The reason why they're doing it is because the entire world does not consider you human. You cannot go into a nation where people are considered humans and do the type of thing that you are seeing in Africa and the United States of America. and in Britain or in the black communities, you won't see it. You only see that in areas where people are considered subhuman. Now I know the question becomes, who classified them as such? Who made them that way? This is what we have to deal with. But the fact of the matter is, Frank, we cannot run from the reality that you were never classified as a citizen in the United States of America. You've never been classified as a citizen. You are not a citizen nowhere in this world because you don't have the control, and those that control you determine the laws. And this is in part what the problem is. So it says here, Martin is saying it's obvious today. It's obvious today, Brother Mobley, that America has defaulted on its promissory note. Look at how black men are being shot down by police officers. And if they're being shot down by police officers, they're still going into court, and the people that perpetuated the crime against them are being found not guilty. The Bible says that they will gun us down, Book of Zephaniah, said they will gun us down in the streets and be found not guilty. This is what's happening to us. And the reason why is because you're not considered human. Please understand that. This is taught throughout any literary writings in the world. This is taught. When I first started going to Asia, as I said before, the people over there considered us subhuman. When you talk to them, you start to learn that they have these expectations and preconceived notions about you that's inconsistent with who you are. Because those that went before you paid the understanding that you were subhuman. And this is why we have to challenge these people. Anyway, let's get back to the speech. America has given the Negro people a bad check, which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that. We refuse to believe that we are less than human. We refuse to believe that justice will not reign in the United States of America. We refuse to believe it. Watch this. Okay, it says, we refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity in this nation. So we have come to cast a check that would give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. You see how this right here is propaganda? This right here, is garbage, because you don't get justice in any court system. You don't get it. Listen, every year the Department of Justice releases its report. The Colonel Commissioner report, started by Johnson in the 60s, every single year is released. It continually shows the great divide in the justice system between the blacks and the whites. It continuously shows it. And this is why Martin Luther King says you cannot get justice. This is why he continued to tell you that America's bank is bankrupt, the check is bankrupt. For these reasons. Now, watch this. We have also come to the hollow spot to remind America. Listen at his language. Of the fierce urgency of now. In other words, we're getting to the point, Uncle Rudy, where we are no longer, listen at him good, man, where we are no longer going to stand around and act as if these things do not exist. Skip down real quick to now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now this is a very serious formula right here. Because what he's saying is that God's children are the ones that's in the quicksand. Listen, he said God's children are the ones that are suffering. Right? He said, now is the time to lift our nation. What nation are we talking about? For lack of a better word, let's say the nation of Africa. Now is the time to lift our nation. God's children. Listen now, look at his language. Now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now please don't mix this up. It says to all of God's children. Remember, in the book of Genesis, it talks about the sons of God. But then there are other scriptures that talk about the Son of God. But the scripture also tells us that those who live according to the laws and teachings of God are what? Sons of God. Sons of God. If you are in a nation where you are handing down injustice, that is not of God. So it's easy for us to see who God's people are. God's people are the ones that are suffering, the ones that are being poured down in the quicksand. So Martin here is saying all God's children. He didn't say everybody is God's child. He's saying all God's children. Remember, you're a peculiar people, a chosen people. God chose you above all nations on the face of the earth. He chose you. This is why you had such great civilizations prior to coming here. This is why you were able to come here and build the United States of America like it is. Lay out their law system. Believe me, understand. The law system, the Constitution, all of this is based upon Egyptian law. All of this is, including Washington, D.C. itself. Watch this. It says, it will be fatal. Listen to Martin Luther King talk. He said, it will be fatal. Anybody know another word for fatal?
Deadly.
Deadly.
Detrimental.
Come on, man. He said it would be deadly. Non-violence? What? It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment and to underestimate the determination of the Negro. He said, listen, he said it would be deadly to underestimate the urgency and determination of the Negro. They don't talk about that part of the dream.
You don't want to know that.
Right. So now the sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. It says here, 1963 is not an end but a beginning. What Martin is saying is that we're coming into a new nation. Right? Now, let's take this thing a little bit further. You ain't gonna get this on TV. 1963. Let me get back to this.
20 years ago.
All right, 1963 and 2019, what do they have in common? Let's deal with this thing just briefly now, because remember, we're talking about ancient African culture here. And everything in ancient African culture has purpose. Everything. Everything. Now, let's look. I got it here. 1963. I am saying 1963 is equal to almost to 2019. Our new nation is alive 2019, like it or not. Martin is saying 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Hold up, Tony. What Martin is saying is that 1963 denotes the ushering or coming in of a new nation. Now, if our people spoke in parables, 1963 means something other than 1963. Okay, so now, if 1963 means something other than 1963, what does it mean? Where can we find the prophecy in 1963? Do you see how the Africans think? You're listening at one. Please pay attention to this. Everything has purpose, right? And nobody can go into the spirit and do things like the African. Nobody has the power to determine and understand dreams like the African. Why do I say that? How do I know that, Dr. Dodo? Is there any scientific data to support that at all? That the Africans are greater interpreters of dreams and spirituality? Is there anything scientific to go with that?
Yes.
What is it? Can you share it with us a little bit?
Well, I think the obvious is the access to all the wave around us.
Okay. Okay. Say it one more time.
Remember, from time I bring these charts where I show that black people, for example, okay, white people only have access to the visible light on the spectrum, on the light spectrum. White folks only have access to, you know, the visible light. Chinese people have access to a little more than that. Indian have access to a little more than the Chinese. But the African have access to all the wave known, from electric to radio to microwave to all of these waves, short, long, African people who can tap into their pineal gland and who can tap into their melanin have access to all of these ways.
Okay.
So it gives you access to all of this information.
So we have more accessibility than anybody else to the information that's available.
Exactly.
Okay, now, all right, so now that we've gotten the validation from our scientists, who has beautifully separated the proteins that cause peanut allergies, who comes from our homeland, West Africa, now that we've gotten the blessings from her, who furthered the spiritual science of where George Washington Carver started, who furthered that. Who furthered that. It's very important that we understand this. Now, let's roll. So now, when we're dealing with the numbers, I said 1963 is almost equal to 2019. Now, there's a couple reasons why I say this. Because we're talking about the birth of a new nation. And Frank, we're dealing with some African science here. How do we say this? Because, does anybody know what year Martin Luther King was assassinated?
1968.
1968. Anybody know what month? April. Does anybody know how old he was?
39.
39. Does anybody know? 39. Does anybody know what year Malcolm X was assassinated? 65.
65.
Does anybody know how old he was?
39.
39. Why? See, y'all playing with the science. Why were both of them killed at 39? Lord have mercy. So, what happens is that there's some secret science that we don't talk about. And in the secret science, see, culturally, in most tribes in Africa, they determine how man comes into manhood and what age and so forth and so on. Some 13, some 6 in some tribes. But when you come into full spiritual manhood and understanding, you're 40 years old. This is 40, okay? Now, why is this so important? Because the same people that killed Martin Luther King killed Malcolm X. They didn't want them to come into full spiritual manhood. This is very important that you understand this. They didn't want them to come into full spiritual manhood. Now, if you take 1963 and divide it by 39, you get about 50. If you take 2019 and divide it, you'll get almost 51. 51, roughly. One is about 50. Walk with me for a second. So you get about 50 here, and you'll get about 51 right here when you divide those by 39. Now stay with me for a second, because remember, our ancestors dropped science in everything, and our ancestors understood everything. Do you know that this Bible is a book of prophecy? That means that they wrote it before these things actually happened? That only about 25% of the Bible is history, the other 75% is prophecy, and our ancestors wrote the book, and they felt so compelled about it that they were able to scribe it in stone? Stone! Do you know how accurate you have to be in your science to etch it in stone? I ain't talking about paper that you can go tear up and replace. I'm talking about stone. This is how accurate our people were with the stories. Now watch this. So now if we take the 1963, 2019, right? Then if we take 3 plus 1 is 4 plus 9 plus 6. It'll give you 19. All right? And we're dealing with 2019 here in this part of a number equation right here as well. Stay with me for a second. Then if you go down and you take 4 times 9, 4 times 9 times 6, you'll get 2. Hold on a second, family. So if you take 4 again right here, 3 and 1, 4, right? And you multiply that times 9 times 6, you'll get 216. So essentially this becomes 27. The reason why we're doing this is because if you take 1 plus 2, that's 3, times 9 is what? Okay, now, this is why this is so important. Because we learn real quick with number science, spiritual number science, and the mystery science school and teaching. You learn real quick that numbers have meaning. And you can correlate or or translate the meanings based upon other number systems. I'm telling you there's commonality between 2019 and 1963, and they're closely related. Watch this. Just follow me for a second. Do y'all talk about this in school? Okay, go ahead, brother.
I'm gonna add on. I deal with ages.
Okay.
And to add on to what you're saying, we like before the year 1960, we was in the Pisces age.
Yeah.
From 1960 to 1970, we got a glimpse of the Aquarius age.
Yeah.
So, and now they're saying that in 2019 or 2020, or actually 2012, we will be moving into the age of Aquarius. So this,
Information.
So it correlates exactly with the 1960, to that 10-year period. We got a glimpse of the Aquarius age, and now we in the age of Aquarius. So it correlates with this actually. When you're talking about the 1963 and the assassination, that was during that 10-year glimpse of the new age. And now 2019, we're actually in a. So it correlates exactly with
Now,
what
brother,
you're saying.
this is the same. This is spiritual science. There is no greater science. Let me stop you for a second. So when we look at the Olmec calendars, do you know they got calendars that go out over 200,000 years that talk about events and weather patterns, and they're accurate? Listen, do you know one of the reasons why Jews are able to attain so much wealth and run and control the sciences like they do? Because they have access to this information and you don't. Do you know why the American government under the United States President called Kennedy came out and decided that we were going to go to the moon? Because they had access to all of the books that's in the library, that was in the Library of Alexandria, where our ancestors left this evidence, and who had predicted, calculated, and formularized how to get to the moon. Are you listening to me? All of this information was available, but we don't have access to it no more. We don't. The only thing we got now, for example, Dr. Dodo, is a juju man in West Africa. Or you'll go down in some parts of Ahoskie or Murfreesboro and Roanoke Rapids, and you'll find spiritual people who are into something called voodoo that has insight and access to a lot of this stuff, which we're no longer practicing, right? So what am I telling you? Okay, stay right there for a second. So now we got the 27, we got the 19. Then if we take 1963 is equal to 6 divided by 3. All right, so you take 1963, right? This is how it goes. You take 1963 and you take 6, you divide it by 3, you get 2, right? And then you got 19, right? So 19 times 2 is 38, right? Then if you take 19 right here and you multiply that times 2, you get 38 again. So what I'm saying to you is that this is so significant when you look at these year patterns. What we're looking at is 2 years or systems that correlate in terms of time frame. And to show you how serious it is, do you see the beheadings and the injustice that was happening in the 60s is here again? This is how we know we're walking into that time frame, because the evidence is abundantly clear. Now watch this. Let me show you some other things real quick. Okay, look at this. Numbers. I want you to get this. This is very important. Now, it says right here, let me read this. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. Listen to what's happening in 2019. Please hear this. The Negro ain't taking the shit no more. Excuse my language. 2019 is the end. Listen to what King is telling us. Listen now. He says, look, do you know King comes on the scene? President Obama comes on the scene 40 years after King was assassinated. Do you think that's coincidental? Do you know that the children of Israel were supposed to wander for 40 years? All of these are indicators. See, if we read the book like a history book, you will never see this kind of stuff. But if you read the book like it's a book of prophecy, you will see all of this kind of stuff. And it's very important that we start to indulge in the prophetical side of the Bible. Now, watch this. It says that 1963 is not an end but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. Now, brother, this is also consistent with those that are in Africa. Those that think that the Africans are going to continue to be content, they're up for a rude awakening. A serious rude awakening. It says, there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America. Tranquility is calm. Nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship right. Did y'all get that? There will neither be rest or tranquility in Africa, in America, until black people are granted their citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. Listen at this good. This is in part of prayer, where Martin Luther King is saying, I pray to God. You got to understand the inferences in this. I am praying that the foundations of America be shaken by whirlwinds, by earthquakes, by massive storms until justice is given to our people. Who else spoke that language? Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey said, if there be power in death, I will come back in a whirlwind and I will bring millions of Africans with me. This is Marcus Garvey talking. Why are they saying that? Because this is biblical, spiritual science that they're talking about. And both of those men were spiritual scientists. Look at this. The Bible. Nahum 1 and 3. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power and will not at all acquit the wicked. Frank, they can't get away. Frank, the wicked cannot get away. Listen, it didn't say he was going to forgive the wicked, did it? It said he will not acquit the wicked. That means the wicked will be punished. Let me ask you a question. Go to Job 9 and 24 real quick. Let's just be honest. What ethnic group controls the earth right now? Let's be honest. Somebody talk to me. What? Who?
White.
The European controls the earth. Nobody will dispute that. Don't he control most of Africa? He controls, Job 9:24. He controls America, right? We can say that. Don't we operate under his educational system? His political system? His economic system? He's in control, isn't he? So he's responsible for what's happening today, isn't he? Book of Job, chapter 9, verse 24. You got it, brother?
Yeah.
Let me hear it.
The earth is given unto the land. Hold on, I'm sorry. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked.
Stop right there. The earth is given unto who? The hand of the wicked. Now it says, it didn't say that Europe was. It says the entire earth. Who's controlling it? Talk to me. The European, right? The European, the Tamahu, is controlling the earth. Watch this. It says the wicked. There it says the Lord is slow to anger and great in power and will not acquit the wicked. Stop for a second. Why is this so important? Because white people right now that's controlling the earth are doing whatever they want to do to black people and they're being acquitted. But nigga, excuse my language, God ain't going to acquit you. God's going to find you guilty. You good, brother? God's going to find you guilty. It says the Lord in the, listen, the whirlwind and in the storm and the clouds. That means that God is going to use nature to rattle this nation, to shake this nation, because of the injustices that she has done over you. Again, Marcus Garvey said, if death has any power, I will come back in a whirlwind. And he said, I'm bringing millions of Africans with me. And if I can't come in a whirlwind, I'm coming in a storm. But I'm going to destroy this thing. This is what Marcus said. So, now, let's go back to the speech real quick. Jeremiah 23:19, behold, a whirlwind of the Lord is gone forth in fury, even a grievous whirlwind. It shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked. America is falling. She's suffering. But do you know why she's suffering? Because of how she's treated you. This is why she's suffering. Look at this. But there is something that I'm getting there. I'm almost finished. There's something that I must say to my people. Now listen at Mark. There's something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. That's what Frank prayed on earlier. let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Because that's not who we are. Black people are not hate-filled people. Contrary to what you might see on television, that's not who we are. This is who we were trained to be. Are you following me? But this is not our very nature. We're not a nation of people who are haters. That's not who we are. We've been made this way over time by the wicked. Please understand it. Now watch this. Watch Martin live. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. In other words, we are not going to act like Europeans have treated us. We're not going to do that. But what is Martin telling you? That the day is coming that you're going to be in power. Did y'all catch that? When you come into power, don't do to them like they did to you. Why is that so serious? Watch this. Can we find this in the Bible? Yeah, here it is. Look at this. Book of Isaiah 14, 1 through 2. Let me read it to you. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob. He will have mercy on who? Jacob. And will choose Israel and set them in their own land. And set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. In other words, the strangers are going to cleave with us. They're going with us to the house of Jacob. But watch this. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. We're going to bring the strangers with us, Lena. Then it says, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. Y'all missed that part. In other words, what they have done to us is coming back on them. Because my great-great-grandmother used to say, boy, you're going to reap what you sow. What comes around, what?
Goes around.
What goes up?
Must come down.
This is African culture at its best, right? So we understand these spiritual concepts. The wicked will be punished. Whether you want to agree on this or not, this is what Martin King was talking about. The day is coming where you will have control over them. But don't do them like they did you. See, slavery is nothing new to the African. After 7 years, you can buy your freedom or be released. You can practice your religion. You can eat with us. You can do anything you want to do with us. But it's not a system of brutality and harshness. All throughout African culture, you'll find that people became booties of war. They would take the booties of spoil and bring them into their own camps and tribes. Now, but within this are some serious systems. We saw this with Shaka Zulu in the early 1800s. How did they finally run the Europeans out? Shaka Zulu was shown a vision in a dream. I wish y'all would follow me. He was shown a vision in a dream. Because he was looking for solutions to get rid of the European. So in an attempt to get rid of him, he received the dream. But do you know why he got the dream? Because he was looking for it. He desired the answer, and it came to him in a dream. What am I telling you? Anything that you desire can come to you. You have the power within your mind to do all things, to create all things. Most of the things that you do, first you see it in a vision. And then you bring it into existence. Shaka Zulu saw that the way that you defeat the European is that you change your weaponry. What he saw, yes sir, what he saw, the Africans of the old Zulu tribes would throw their spears, and then they'd be spearless, and the Europeans would shoot them down. Shaka says, no, cut the spear in half. Give me a front line. Let them throw the spear. And when they throw the spear and they start loading their guns on the other side, go and shoot them. That's how he defeated them. But the point is, he saw it in a vision.
Well, you know, they stole that on the movie 300.
On what?
The movie 300?
I'm not familiar with that.
About Greek, it was like about Greek war.
That's us. That's
right, but they made it as white people.
Well, let me help with that right quick.
Please.
The Greeks were the one they were fighting against, but the people that they were fighting were the Persians. And the Persians were black, even in the movie, and I do have both the first version and the second version of it. If you look very, very close at the guys that they were fighting against, they did not and in no way, shape show European. They were what we have the archetype of Africans. They were large, they were dark-skinned, they were big-lipped, and etc. So the Persians that the Greeks were fighting against, and those were the Spartans that were fighting against them, they were fighting against a black nation. They were not fighting against a white.
But they were white.
They were white.
Okay, all right, so basically what we want to show you here is that there's power in dream state. We should be able to go to dream state for access. We see it in the history of Harriet Tubman. All of this was dreamed first. She dreamed of freeing slaves. Are y'all listening to me? She dreamed of freeing slaves. And then when she dreamed of it, she carried it out. Why is this important? Because the answers to the problem is in the DNA. It's already current. And when the ancestors start communicating with you, do not run. Stand still. Listen to your ancestors. Listen at them communicate to show you the power of the ancestors. When you go to Washington, D.C., you see monuments of white people that have came and did great things because they honor their ancestors. We have to start honoring ours. We have to start deifying ours as they did in Great West Africa, which we've gotten away from, Sister Dodo. But we got to get back to those natural African systems. Sister, you had a question?
No, I was watching The Underground, which was a series on TV. They discontinued it. But it's called The Underground, but Harriet Tubman was a big player in the show. And it showed her having sleeping spells. Like she'd just be sitting up regular and she'll just fall out to sleep. And when she come back to, it's a sign.
Absolutely.
She has a vision of what she needs to do or how to move.
This is exactly how she even understood that she could communicate with star systems. She saw it in a vision. You don't automatically come up understanding this.
Right.
She got the vision. And when she got the vision that she could communicate with star systems, she did that as many of our great leaders did. Much of what Martin Luther King talked about, he dreamed about first, and then he brought it before the crowds. And I am telling you that when you look at successful people in general, I don't care what their successes are, many of them dream about what they're bringing into existence. And by the way, your dream state is not just when you sleep. Your dream state is also when you're communicating with the spirit man on the inside of you. You're in a dream state as well. Any questions before I'm almost finished? Just a minute.
I have a comment. For years now, God has dealt with me in dreams. As a little girl, I dreamed, and it be to the letter of what happened. And I never really thought much about it now until I'm learning that, you know, as I'm coming into this awakening and rising or whatever, that was a gift that God had given me to see things. And about maybe a couple of years ago, a dear friend of mine, a close friend of mine, I had a dream that him and his wife had a child. And that she was a little girl. Now, I tell him the time that I talked to him, I said, that baby on the way? He said, no. Not that I know of. And then I think like the next day, he didn't tell me till 2 years later. The next day they found out they were having a baby. And it was a little girl. And he was like, your dream was to the letter. Of exactly, you know. So I've also dreamed about a $90,000 check. So hopefully that'll be good soon.
I know somebody who's getting ready to get a $90,000 settlement. I read the paper.
Oh wow.
Exact amount.
Women are dreamers.
Yeah.
Women are.
Well, men dream too now, brother.
Well, spiritually.
Yeah, we do too now. Don't minimize that. And I'll show you some stuff in a second. But look at this. We all have that ability. It's not just something that's limited to women. You know, so we all have that ability. We just have to start tapping into it. So what happens is that now you can influence your dream state. And this is where we are as a people now. So you can go in and out of your dreams, but we have to learn how to use that power. Now, I'm telling you this, but I haven't gotten that far yet that I can go out of my dream, pull other people in my dream, visit other people in their dreams. I'm telling you, we have that power. And all you have to do is study on the surface some of the Dogon work, and you'll see that power. Go ahead, brother.
I know my mom, well, we know a man that can do that.
Oh, you do? Okay, beautiful. You need to get him here so he can teach us. Look, I'm just about finished. So when you look at the success of Toussaint Louverture of Haiti in 1791, you know, he saw a dream too, vision, right? And so many of the voodoo priests that he was working with were able to dream and go in dream state and see things and bring forth answers to the problems that they were having. Imagine if we really had that power, that we could really access, manipulate, our dream state and bring forth solutions to the problem. Watch this. Major issues that we're having in our community, dream state. Illnesses, dream state. At will. We used to be that type of individual. But something happened to us, family, and we're not quite how we used to be. Let me finish up. But here's what I'm showing you in Isaiah. Those that had us in bondage and captivity, according to African culture, will go into captivity. They're going in, and we will control them. We will control them. And what Martin is saying, don't do to them the way they did you. That's all. I'm almost finished, family. Okay, so now watch this. We must forever conduct our struggle on a high plane. Are you getting it? You must always conduct your struggle on a high plane. That high plane is from a heavenly state. Remember now, the word heaven goes back to a Hebrew word, Aramaic, called shamayim. This is a word which means high state of consciousness, right? This is what this word means. Don't play with the fairy tale heaven that they tell you about. Don't get caught up in that. Now, those of you that are Christians, I know because I was raised a Christian as well. I know what they teach you, that you going to heaven. Stop, please. Please stop. Because what you're doing is preparing our people to think that there's something up, way up in the sky, a land flowing with milk and honey and pearly gates and so forth and so on. Let's stop with that now. Let's stop that. So, we must forever conduct our struggle on a high plane, a high state of consciousness, of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights. The majestic heights are the heavenly heights, the Shamayim heights. We must rise to those heights of meeting physical force with soul force. Did y'all get that part? Martin is saying that the spirit can overcome all other forces by meeting spiritual force with soul force. He's saying the spiritual force can overcome all other forces. The marvelous this marvelous new militancy, the world knows nothing about. But you have the power to bring it in. This is a marvelous new militancy. Spiritual force or soul force. It's the greatest power on the face of the earth. What am I saying to you? That one day you're going to be able to stand before a man with a gun. He's going to be, this is not hocus pocus. He's going to point the gun at you and you can make him turn it on himself. Can y'all imagine that? Now, look, for those of you that think this is crazy, I want to take you back 50 years ago, 40 years ago, when we would see these movies about flying cars, about men talking on cell phones. Do you know people thought that they were crazy, the Jetsons? People thought they were crazy. But do you know now you can talk on a cell phone? Can you imagine if my grandmother passed even in 2000? When I first came in the house, or 2004, when I first came in the house on the cell phone, she said, boy, what you doing? I said, I'm talking on the phone. She said, that ain't no phone, boy, give me that thing. And I gave it to her. She said, Lord, have mercy. How did they do this? Or can you imagine 200 years ago, our ancestor, if they were able to come back and would see planes flying? Can you imagine how amazed they would be if they saw that? Well, this is the day that we're in. We're in the day of amazement. And we have to expect amazing things to happen. And if you don't expect them to happen, watch this. They won't happen. You've got to expect them to happen. Right? Speak those things. Somebody, come on. As though they were, right? This is the day that we're in. Okay, I'm almost finished right here. Now, it says, and as we walk, we must make the pledge, we shall march ahead. We cannot turn back. We can't go back to the 60s. Not the way they live. There are those who are taking the devotees of civil rights. When will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger ghetto, a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote, and the Negro in New York believes that he has no reason which to vote. Mississippi again. The beheading, the lynching, Mississippi. We got to expect risings to start occurring in Mississippi. That's what it is. Any state where you've seen great slave occupation, expect great things to start happening in those states with black people. Now, one part of the prophecy we still have to fulfill. Remember those major cities that we talked about. Remember the two cities that's left. Washington, D.C., remember? Washington, D.C., that's right, brother. And North Carolina. Expect it.
Yeah, we better move out west.
I don't know where we're going to move, but it's coming. So watch this. So it says here. So in Jackson, Mississippi, I told you they call Jackson Jaffrica, right?
Yes, sir.
They call it Jaffrica because there's so many blacks in that part of Mississippi. White people call it Jaffrica. This is one of the reasons why they said that they hanged the black guy because he was dating a white girl, right? So this shows you that this is what they were doing back in the 60s. How many of y'all dating white girls now? Raise your hand. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No, that's okay. So this is what they were doing. Why you look back at my son, Dr. Dodo? You know something I don't know?
No, I'm just looking.
Oh, you look back at my son. What's up, dog?
I raised his hand.
Yo, Nishad raised that.
He raised his hand.
All right, now. Look, our sisters are still our mothers now. Look, okay, all right, let's go. No one, okay, so I'm almost finished. It says here, I want y'all to get this. I am not unmindful, this is Martin Luther King again, that some of you have come here out of a great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from the narrow cells. Some of you have come from areas where your request for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. We're seeing police brutality at a higher level than we have seen in a very, very long time. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. There's been no people on the face of the earth who have suffered to the magnitude that you suffered from. Not one people. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Almost finished. Go back to Mississippi, still Martin talking. Go back to Alabama. He's targeting the South. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of the northern cities, desolate cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Here he is alluding to spiritual force again, knowing that somehow this situation will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It is a dream that is deeply rooted in the American dream. Stop. Do you know the American dream for a long time was that white families wanted a house with picket fences? That was a part of the American dream. Do you know why he's saying it's deeply rooted in the American dream? Because you are the one that made that possible for them. You are the one that built America and made America great. Hold on for a second, William. And this is why I say this. You worked for 256 years in chattel slavery, building America and charging absolutely nothing. It is your sweat, your hard work that you put into building this nation that made the dream obtainable for white folk. So when he say deeply rooted in the American dream, you are deeply rooted in the American dream. It is your hard work, your labor, your consistency, your persistency that allowed America to live the great life that they are living today. No American citizen can claim that he's any more smarter than an African. But what he can claim is that he had nearly 256 years of free labor. This is the only thing. Capitalism is not such a great system. Capitalism is a system that's built upon the brutality of slaves. It is not a great economic system. But what made capitalism great is free labor. That's what made it great. It is your and my great-great-grandmother and great-great-grandfather that worked from sun up to sundown for nothing but a piece of fat back meat and cornbread. And water. And water. Tap water at that. This is what we were given. This is what we were given. And this is what has to change. Now, look at this. It is deeply rooted in America. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up. Listen, please don't mistake this. He's not talking about this nation as in the United States of America. He's talking about the nation that's written of in the scripture. He's talking about the children of Israel. He's talking about the tribe of Judah. He's talking about the oppressed people in the United States of America. This nation will rise up. Your nation. Don't get caught up in the double talk. live out the true meaning of his creed. That we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. All men are created equal. We understand that. We understand that. DNA shows that all men are created equal. Come on, Stuart. What do they call them nowadays? I'm communicating telepathically.
Amen.
No, you got it. I'm going to give it to you right now. I'm going to show you how to do a stand-up. Follow me. I'm going to send you a spiritual message right there in front of the audience. This is not rehearsed, right? This is not rehearsed. I want you to breathe. All right? I want you to count to 10 inside. Just let me know when you get to 10. And look at me. All right, now sit down. Now, we're talking about a people. Let me replay it for you. We're talking about a people right here. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal. This is the Constitution. They're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and amongst these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I am telling you that all men are not created equal. There's some men that are created differently from us. And what do you call them? You. Say it. Who? You close, man. You close. No, stop for a second. You close. The Tamahu is right now. For those of you who don't know what Tamahu means, it's an Egyptian word that means created white race. Right? But I'm talking about the Neanderthal. That's what I was trying to get. That's okay. That's okay. Next time. We'll get it. This is our first time.
I got the message, because
you got it? I should have asked that. No.
He said it to her.
Yeah, I sent it to her. But what I'm trying to show you is that these systems in general of reading energy and dreams and so forth and so on, they're powerful systems. Okay, I'm almost finished. Okay. Did you have something you want to say? Okay. All right. Okay, let's go. Okay. So here it is right here. Lamentations. How desolate the city sits that was full of people. She has become like a widow, one great among the nations, like a woman of nobility in the provinces. She has become a forced laborer. She weeps bitterly in the night. This is the Bible. Her tears are on her cheeks. She has no comforter among all her lovers. Sounds like the black woman. All her friends have been unfaithful to her. They have become her enemies, right? Judah is gone into exile, misery, and under hard servitude. We're talking about the tribe of Judah being in slavery, the difficulties, the affliction. This is what I want to show you with this. Now, watch this. Let me skip through this because you get that. Here's where Martin Luther King's vision comes from right here. And we're wrapping up. Genesis 15, 12 through 13. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram. And lo and horror, great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, know for sure that thou seed shall be a stranger in the land is not there. They shall serve them and afflict them for 400 years. The dream that Martin Luther King had is this. This is the dream that he was talking about. He was talking about his people going into servitude for a fixed amount of time, and then after that coming out of it. This is where Martin Luther King's dream comes from. And after that, you'll see it goes down. It says that after that, I, God, will judge that nation and bring them out with a great substance. And I'm going to show you in the Mountaintop what Martin Luther King was talking about as it relates to all this. Now, this is the dream that he was talking about. He's sharing the dream of Abraham. So when he said, I have a dream, he's talking about the dream of his ancestors. He's talking about the dream that was given to him in a vision through his own DNA. Watch this. I have a dream that one day the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will sit down together at the table of brotherhood. Meaning that we will see each other eye to eye. You won't see me as a subhuman, and I won't see you as such. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, keep mentioning Mississippi, look for it in 2019, a desert state sweltering with the heat of injustice and oppression will be transformed into a beautiful oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children one day will live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin or by the content of their character. How many of you know that the man that's currently wicked, ruling, cannot bring that in? He is not capable of bringing that in. Please understand that. He is not capable of bringing in such a nation. The only people that can bring in such a nation are people who suffered in that way. The only people that can bring in such a nation are people who are spiritually astute enough to bring it in. You can try all you want to with him. He can't do it. He cannot do it. That's why 1 Peter 2:9, God says he chose you above all nations on the face of the earth. Because he knew, Mike, you were the only one that could bring it in. Let's keep rolling. I'm almost finished. Then it goes on to say, let's skip down. We don't have to read that top part. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill shall be, mountain shall be made low, the rough places shall be made plain, the crooked places shall be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope that this is the faith with which I return to the south. With this faith, we will be able to hew out a mountain of despair, a stone of hope. This is the faith we will be able to transform the jangling discord of our nation to a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Stop for a second. What he's talking about right here is doing all this together requires that everybody have fully functioning pineal glands. It requires that we be able to communicate according to the basic understanding of the pineal system, where we can telepathically send messages across the nations. Let me take you back. It's written that in 1961 to the Alabama bombing, that before the church exploded, people in other cities were jumping up, women especially, were waking up out of their sleep, their naps, and said something drastic just happened, or was getting ready to happen. It's because black people were spiritually in tune. Sister Dodo likes to write about and talk about in her science that it was because of the afros, the antennas, where we were able to receive so many different messages. But now when you look at most of us like me, we don't have hair on our head anymore. That don't mean I can't receive messages, but the fact of the matter is, Dr. Dodo is saying that there's some correlation between the afro and telepathy. Yes. And through sending messages, right? And we receive that because we know that back then things were happening so fast that blacks were on the same page. When they say the revolution would not be televised, the black poets, the revolution would not be televised, what they're saying is that there's another method of communication that we're unaware of, and it's not going to be on the TV. How many of you know when this thing breaks out in the first place, the TV system is going to be shut down? Yes. Let's keep rolling real quick. I'm almost finished. It says, get this part. It says that with the faith that we will be able to hew out the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. Now go to this scripture right here. Jesus saith unto them, did you never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected? The same is become the head cornerstone. We've been rejected all across the world, brother. Whether you be in Africa or whether you be in the United States of America. The fact of the matter is, black people have been rejected. But do you know that we're getting ready to become the chief cornerstone? Yes. It's happening whether you like it or not. You can't stop it. It says this, the Lord's doing, and it's marvelous in our eyes. I'm almost finished. Mountaintop. Well, it says right here, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. This is in 68 before he died. But it really doesn't matter with me now. Listen to his language. Because I have been to the mountaintop. Stop right there.
He knew he was going to die.
Knew he was going to die. The way he knew it is because he went to the mountaintop. Where's the mountaintop? Inside. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. So he went to the mountain. Now catch this. What he's telling us, if we want to have great spiritual visions, if we want to be able to see things through our dream states, we must go to the mountaintop. That's the highest state of consciousness in here. This is where we must be able to go. There's nothing spooky about it. This is just the fact. This is where we must go. He said when you go there, you'll be able to see things that other people just cannot see. You'll be able to hear things that other people cannot hear. But in order for you to do it, you must go on a spiritual journey to that mountaintop, which is up here. The power of God is within. Within. What Martin is saying is that he saw the vision once he went to the mountaintop. Now my question to you is, what's stopping you from going there? Nobody but you. Okay, I'm almost finished. But it really doesn't matter now. Because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. See, when you go to the mountaintop, you're not concerned about little things anymore. He says, I'm not concerned about that. Listen to his language. He said, I just want to do God's will. I want you to stop for a second. And I want y'all to get this now. This is serious. Now, he said, I want to do God's will. Do you know he had just met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Listen at his language. He said, I just want to do God's will. Him and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had just, hey, leave that alone, son. Go, hey, son, come on, sit down. Sit down right there. Come on, son. Hurry up, sit down. Come on now, big boy. Big boy. Each one love me. So now, what happened is that, I'm sorry, Sister Eve, I would like that too. Most of the young men in here were probably his age all over the place, right? That's who we are. But all we got to do is nurture it. We got him, Sister Will, on your side. Yeah, we got him. We loving this boy, right, Will? Right? Yes, sir. He's a little hot, but sorry. So anyway, so he had just met with Martin Luther King. Matter of fact, let me keep him for a little while today, if you don't mind.
I just asked her.
Yeah, sister. Yeah, we got it. He had just met with Martin Luther King, okay? And after he met with Elijah Muhammad, his language started to change. He became more vocal, more expressive, and it seems like he was becoming more in line with Malcolm. Now here's what I want you to catch, the Islamic influence. So what happened, he says, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. A Muslim is a person who submits his will to do the will of God, period. Now, you can say that you don't agree or don't want to hear that talk. But the fact of the matter is, the Honorable Martin Luther King was coming into a greater understanding. Not only that, not only was he coming into a greater understanding, he was approaching 40. So his spiritual power was growing. Are you following? So now he says, I don't care about anything. The only thing I want to do is I want to do God's will. Can you imagine if we felt like that today? Amen. That the only will that we wanted to do was the will of God? At any expense, at any cost, we just do the will of God. Watch this. Now it says, and he's allowed me to go to the mountaintop. Are y'all listening? I mean, are you really listening? Because what Martin Luther King has said is that it is through the will of God, my desire to please God, that allowed me to get to such a high state of consciousness. Amen. But do you know, brother, that you have that power too? You have that power to go to that high state of consciousness where you can see and do things that other people can't do nor comprehend. But you got to be willing to do God's will. Look, and he's allowed me to go up to the mountaintop. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I've seen the promised land. What is the promised land? The land that was promised to the children of Israel in the book of Genesis. Chapter 15, verse 18. It's also in the Holy Quran. The children of Israel were promised a land. Now watch this. Y'all ain't gonna like this part. All of this, baby. See, we gotta forget Israel. Let's forget the name. Because Israel is a person, not a land. Right? It's a person, not a land. Those people who are part of Israel, and they may not claim it. I know they don't necessarily claim it in West Africa. But here's the thing. William, you're going to have to sit down, son. Come on now. Here's the thing. That all of this region is West Africa. All of this is Yehuda land. All of this is Negro land. Go online when you get a chance and Google Negro land. Or Google Judah land. All of this on the old maps. That's what it shows. Right? All of this is Israel. Using that. Oh, so it says this. It says, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. What Martin Luther King, now you can call him a liar all you want to. What Martin Luther King said is that he's already seen the promised land. He said, I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. Martin is saying the land that was promised to our ancestors, we will obtain it. He's saying it because he saw it in a vision. And just as Shaka Zulu, just as Joseph was given a vision to take Jesus and Mary and go into Egypt, just as Joseph in the book of Genesis chapter 32, starting at the 21st verse, reached a level that he called Peniel, where he saw God face to face. All of this is the same concept. Are y'all following me? You had a question, sister, or comment? Okay, I'm almost finished. So now, I'm sorry, I'm almost finished. And he looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there. Yes.
You said what now?
You have a question?
No, you said what? You almost finished.
I'm almost finished. Yes, sir.
Wait, there goes my man right there.
Who's got a question?
No.
Oh, yeah, it's okay.
I'm
Look,
gonna remind you what he said.
what did he say?
I'm gonna remind you later.
Okay, all right.
Because he brought out a very important part.
Okay, all right.
Most of the part.
Look, tell me what he said.
No, I'm gonna tell you later, one-on-one.
I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight. I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Now, one thing I don't like about this, not that I don't like, somebody made a typo. It ain't my eyes, it's my eye. Y'all ain't listening. My eye have seen the glory in the coming of the Lord. What eye? The third eye, your pineal gland. So in other words, the French call this the God odor. What Martin Luther King is saying, you daggone right, it's the God odor. It is through that I was allowed to see the coming and the glory of the Lord. Now listen. No hocus pocus crap. Forget that. Nothing floating out into space. Stop teaching that something's going to crack the clouds out there and then it's going to take you. Stop teaching that. That's nonsense. It is fairy tale. It is the kind of fairy tale that has reduced us to the levels that we're in today. Ain't nothing cracking that sky and gonna float down and take thousands of people up. Stop it! What about gravity? You gonna overcome it all of a sudden? What about the fact that you freeze going out and burn coming in? What about that? You gonna overcome the scientific laws all of a sudden? And then not only that, if the Bible tells us that flesh and blood cannot inhabit the kingdom of heaven, what you going up there for? Are you telling me that my great-great-grandfather who died 600 years ago is all of a sudden going to come up out of his grave? Then the Bible is a lie because it said the body goes back to the earth from which it came. Then the book of Job chapter 14 tells us that once you go down to the earth, what? You come up no more. Sister, you had something to say? Okay. All right. I'm almost finished, Frank. Last one. Last slide. I'm sorry, family. So now, look, I know it's wrong. Yeah, I'm sorry. So look, so right here. For thus saith the Lord, I have brought all the great evil upon this people, so will bring upon them all the good that I have promised them. God promised us that we would be afflicted, and then he also promised us that he would bring us up out of the affliction. That was a promise that was made by God. And so in understanding that, then our time is coming to be up out of the situation. Any questions? I don't have to deal with the rest of that. Anybody got any questions? I won't deal with the rest of that. I want to summarize. But let me summarize real quick, and then I'll take your question. Here's what I'm saying. We have to re-examine all of the speeches made by our greats. Even great African orators that came forward and made speeches. We got to re-examine them. Right? Because we're in a different time. But our ancestors were communicating with them as well. Right? So we have to understand now all of Malcolm X's speeches replayed. Martin, replay all of their great speeches. Because there's power, there's information in it now that we're not thinking like babies anymore, that we'll be able to extract from that. Right? So now what I'm saying is we're in a day, 1963, 2019. They share common numbers. So because they share common numbers, then that means there are common situations that's going to be consistent with what was happening then. Remember, it was in 1963 where the struggles really heated up. In 1964, the Voters' Rights Acts and things like that was passed as a result of that. It was also not mentioned, but during that time, Martin Luther King wanted to occupy the airports, shut down the airports by laying their bodies out on the airport tarmac so that no planes could land. These are the kind of mindsets that we're going to have to take on if we expect any freedom to come out of Africa, or if we expect any freedom to come out of the United States of America. We have to be willing to sacrifice ourselves for it. But watch this, the only way that you can do it is that you've got to be willing to serve God. And if you're not willing to serve God, then you will never have the statistical fortitude to carry it out. Anybody got any questions or comments?
I got a comment.
Okay, go ahead. One
of the reasons that Martin Luther King made the speech when he went to Memphis, about he been to the Mountaintop. But see, Malcolm X had already been killed.
Right, 65.
And when Malcolm X and Martin Luther King met, Malcolm X let Martin Luther King know that they both had one thing in common. They both were dead men. And then working in the civil rights movement, each and every time that the people would go out, they knew that they were subject to be killed any minute.
Any minute, yeah.
And one of the most violent, and if you would check, you don't even hear anything about it, and that's the movement that took place in St. Augustine, Florida.
Yeah.
All right, in St. Augustine, Florida, when we went there, they just didn't have, they had snipers, so you could be walking down the street and be killed in a minute. So every time you went out with the anticipation that you could be killed.
May not be coming back.
Right, that you're not gonna come back. So as leaders, they knew they could be killed any minute. The other thing was, you were right about one thing. I did watch the documentary. It was a massive plan that Martin Luther King would take care of the South. And Malcolm X, now this was one of Malcolm X's followers in a documentary making the statement. Martin Luther King was supposed to continue to work with the South. And him and Malcolm X were going to team together. And Malcolm X was going to run the North. But they got killed in the process.
That singer, he was going to finance it, but they killed Sam Cooke.
Oh, is that right?
He was going to finance Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They was combined, and Sam Cooke was going to be the financier for that whole thing. That's why he was killed. That's why
Killed both of them.
Even with Tupac and Biggie.
And
They weren't really beefing.
And then another major thing that a lot of people don't realize, when they had the March on Washington, okay, they went there. So a lot of times, the movement was forced to go in a direction that it didn't want to go. So Martin Luther King now realized, what good is it to integrate school when you can't afford to buy your kids clothes to go to these schools? What good is it to be able to go into a white neighborhood when you don't have the money to buy a house in the neighborhood? So now what they're getting ready to do, they get ready to go back to Washington, D.C. as the poor people campaign.
After that tip, next time we go down,
So that was, and they was to stay there.
The last speech was,
the next time we go to
open
Washington,
up our own
we
bank.
want our own check. He said, the government was giving me white
And so they were getting ready to go back to D.C. and pitch tents on the Capitol lawn and stay there until this change came about.
You know, Barber is over the Poor People's Campaign. Now, he resigned from the NAACP, stepped down, he's over the Poor People's Campaign now. T. Ferguson always talked about the next dimension of the Civil Rights Act was the Civil Rights movement, was the economic movement. That had to be the next. Go ahead, Frank.
Prior to Martin Luther King actually writing this speech, there was another individual who I was very, very fond of. Langston Hughes wrote
Yes.
What Happened to a Dream Deferred. Now in 19,000, just before a young senator by the name of Barack Obama, I wish I had really recorded that message. That's one of the few messages I did, one of the last messages I did actually. I wish I had recorded. I used that as the fulcrum of my text, a dream deferred, and I was explaining to the people that, because a lot of times when we look at that, we look at dream deferred means a dream not happening. That's not what it means. It means put off, consistently put off. Deferred means consistently put off. And that same year, a lot of us that keep up with politics got a chance to see a young senator out of Chicago do the DNC speech. Now, I didn't say this, but a lot of other people said they did say it. They said that that is our next president. And then, of course, that is what occurred. But one of the things that I did say in that message prior to ever seeing President Barack Obama, didn't know who he was until I did see him at the DNC. I didn't keep up with Chicago politics like that. Was the fact that the reason why we don't have a black president has nothing at all to do with white people. It has to do with us. We can't see a black president. And when little boys came home prior to that, 5 and 6 and 7 years old, come home from school and say, "What you learn?" And the kids say, "You know, I was in school and I decided I'm gonna be the president of the United States." It was us, big brothers, big sisters, mothers and fathers say, "Boy, you'll never be president.
Kill the
You'll
dream.
never let a black man be president. So we defer the dream of our children when they are in that dream state, when they are beginning to learn to dream. We're the ones that shut their dreams off, because when they tell us what they dream, we tell the little brothers and the little sisters that can never happen because of. And they grow up with that so much battered and beat into them that as they grow older, then they become the individuals. And even in Martin Luther King's speech, he said that he talked about the individual that don't have the right to vote. But the thing that I key in on, he said, and the individuals who don't feel they have no reason to vote. And in North Carolina, Clemens County, Hertford, North Carolina, we are totally inoculated with the fact that we have a group of individuals of black descent who don't feel they have a reason to vote, and that is what we have to change.
Anybody else got a comment?
Yeah, well, see, that's what I was telling them earlier. If you don't motivate the people to get out there to vote, you want to get out there and kill the vote. When Sheriff Harder ran for sheriff in Hertford County for the first time, hell, they had winos out there pushing votes and stuff, campaigning for the guy. So they was motivated. But one thing about black people, you have to motivate them, give them this fighting power, and if you don't give it to them, they sit back and relax and don't do anything. I'm gonna read you one thing and I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Now, Martin Luther King said, I often wonder whether or not education, listen to this, education is fulfilling its purpose. A great majority of so-called educated people do not think logically or scientifically. Even the press, the classroom, the platform, and even the pulpit, in many instances, do not give us the objective and unbased truth. So what do you tell you? All these places is lying. Even the pulpit.
Yeah.
See, now when did this take place? After he went to Washington D.C., he made this "I have a dream" speech, and then he come back and said, "Freedom, the oppressor never gives you freedom. It's demanded by the oppressor." So what are you telling you? You have to be willing to die for your freedom.
Absolutely.
There's a war going on. He knew that people were going to be killed, but he preached nonviolence, even though there was a major fighting going on in the movement.
Sister, you got a question coming?
Yes, thank you very much for this presentation, that was quite interesting. I have listened to
Can you talk loud?
I have listened to the have a dream speech, I've read it,
Oh yeah.
etc. But I'm very happy because for the first time you helped me see the connection between that I have a dream speech with the ancestry.
Sure, absolutely.
Which we tend to disconnect ourselves from this education.
Yeah.
So that was very beautiful because in most of the African tradition, in most of anything that has to do, it's always goes to dream and vision. It's always food, dreams and vision. And so it's good because I finally made that connection just here in this speech. This will help me, see things a little differently than in my own personal life.
Well, thank you for saying it. I'm glad that you got something out of it. I think that we have to rely more on our African systems as opposed to the European system. We have to get away from the European system, and we really have to sacrifice and try to move away because it's destroying us, and it's destroying the entire world. Because if we're God's gift to the world, and we are, because we're His first created people, right? If we're God's gift to the world, why are we being so destroyed? Why are we not being allowed to manifest God, right? So we have to take stronger positions. Anybody else have a question or anything they want to add?
I got one comment.
All right,
He done that speech in Rocky Mount first, 1962. Martin Luther King Jr. He done that I have a dream speech in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, before he went to Washington D.C. He done that in Rocky Mount in 1962.
Now he was here also in Edenton, North Carolina. He came to Edenton for a day or two. He was supposed to march over the Hertford Bridge, but this bridge here, this S Bridge, but they threatened him so bad. The Ku Klux Klan was so bad in this area that, because they had major rioting right on Dobb Street. This was a main hub. And this is where a lot of the fighting was occurring between the blacks and the whites, right here. But he did not go from Edenton to Hereford because of the fear of what was going to happen if he actually went out that day. So, yeah. Anybody?
You know, y'all black kids around here playing with these